Hey, what's up, y'all? And welcome back to another Alt Factuals video. So with, Captain America Brave New World coming out, and I guess a lot of people did enjoy the format and also my discussions regarding comic books and their political ties. Well, I'm going to combine the two, and we're going to kind of talk about some topics that are very interesting that you have to pay attention for in the film because, like I mentioned, comic books have always been political. So let's get right into it. Now, we already know from the 10 plus years of the Captain American films, they have consistently explored themes of freedom, morality, the tension between individual rights, collective security, and all that stuff, right? So these messages are particularly relevant in Captain America Brave New World, which continues the legacy of the franchise while introducing new layers of political intrigue and ethical dilemmas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of break down the key messages of Captain America films, including the iconic scene in Captain America Civil War 2016 where Zemo critiques humanity's willingness to surrender their freedoms for security, and also how a lot of these things we're seeing in the Captain America films are very relevant today. Doesn't matter if you're left, right, it doesn't matter. We actually all have the same enemy, but in reality, there's nothing easier than fighting an enemy that's divided. So let's get into the first, ideological perspective when it comes to these films and also kind of the undertones they discuss. Now, the cost of freedom and the dangers of authoritarianism, right? So Captain America films often grapple with the idea that freedom is not free. It requires vigilance and sacrifice. In Captain America, the First Avenger in 2011, Steve Rogers embodies the American ideal of fighting for liberty against oppressive forces like HYDRA, a Nazi-affiliated organization, right? This theme is revisited, as we all know, in Captain America the Winter Soldier in 2014, where HYDRA infiltrates S.H.I.E.L.D., revealing how institutions meant to protect freedom can become tools of oppression. The film critiques mass surveillance and also the erosion of privacy, warning against the dangers of trading liberty for perceived security, right? So in Civil War in 2016, the theme is further explored as well with the Sokovia Accords, which demand that superheroes submit to government oversight, right? So Zemo in the film antagonist cynically observes people are willing to give up their freedoms for safety, a sentiment that resonates with the real world about debates about security versus liberty. His line specifically was, and I quote, "An empire toppled by its enemies can rise again, but one which crumbles from within, that's dead forever." Underscores the fragility of democratic ideals when citizens willingly relinquish their rights. Also, something else that was referenced in Captain America the Winter Soldier was Arnmin Zola, and quote, "HYDRA created a world so chaotic that humanity is finally ready to sacrifice its freedom to gain its security. Once the purification process is complete, HYDRA's new world order will arise." End quote. So let's kind of get into the evolution of the Captain America's ideology, right? So we know that Steve Rogers, so often this quote, people think, it kind of exists in a vacuum when in reality it doesn't. The underscores the fragility of democratic ideas when citizens are willingly able to relinquish their rights is something that is a combination of what Arnmin Zola said, as well as what Zemo was describing the government is doing, and something we're actually currently dealing with today. Governments, whether it be America, whether it be any other kind of first world government, they often will create these fires to be perceived to put them out. So that way people are willingly able to sacrifice their freedom to get the illusion of safety. Now, Steve Rogers, the original Captain America, represents unwavering moral integrity and the belief in the American ideals of justice and equality. However, his ideology evolves as he confronts complexities of modern government, which we've already discussed. Now, in Civil War, Rogers refuses to sign the Sokovia Accords, arguing surrendering autonomy to the government body undermines the very freedoms he fought to protect, basically. The stance reflects a shift from a blind patriotism, which he kind of experienced when he went through the process of getting the super soldier serum, to a more nuanced understanding of power and accountability, right? So in Captain America Brave New World, Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, continues this. Unlike Rogers, Wilson is not a super soldier, which makes his journey far more relatable. The film explores his struggle to uphold Rogers' ideals while navigating the world rifled with political corruption and moral ambiguity, right? Wilson's dynamic with the president, what was it, Thaddeus Ross, who himself is very shady, who becomes a Red Hawk, highlights the tension between leadership and accountability, as well as the dangers of completely unchecked powers, right? So Captain America franchise has always been deeply intertwined with the concept of propaganda, both as a tool of inspiration and manipulation as well. In the first Avenger, Rogers is initially used as a propaganda figure to kind of sell war bonds, symbolizing the ideas of, or the versions of American patriotism and heroism. However, he rejects this role, choosing instead to fight in the front lines, which underscores the difference between performative patriotism and genuine sacrifice. This is why Steve Rogers, in a lot of ways, was indeed worthy. You know, at the end of it all, he was able to lift the hammer because he wasn't someone who just talked the talk, he actually walked the walk. And the theme of propaganda resurfaces in Brave New World when the character, the leader, a villain who manipulates public perception to destabilize the United States. That is something we are dealing with today all over the world, as well as in the US. People are morphing and shaping the perception of countries with online propaganda and or content that can then destabilize countries, which, you know, ultimately can lead to a downfall if things do not change. The film critiques how misinformation, false information, and fear can be weaponized to control populations, a timely reflection of contemporary issues like fake news and political polarization is a huge problem, which is why people like Elon Musk, who, you know, is perfectly allowing a lot of this information to be spread, as well as the concept of Mark Zuckerberg allowing information that is not fact-checked to spread online, is one of the main reasons why correct and factual information is important nowadays. So you see the correlation here. This is all I'm doing. Basically, we're just going over some of the things that tie into what the real world is experiencing, and also how this feeds into the movies and what these movies represent. We're going through these because Captain America, the whole set of movies in general over the course of, you know, all these years, all had these messages laying under. That's also why in a lot of his films, he often explores the ethical dilemmas faced by leaders. So in Civil War, Rogers' decision to oppose the Sokovia Accords pits him against his own friends, highlighting the personal cost of standing by one's principles. Similarly, in Brave New World, Sam must navigate the murky waters of political intrigue while maintaining his own moral compass. His interactions with President Ross and the leader force him to question who can be trusted and what it means to lead a divided world. So he himself is also starting to transition into something that Steve Rogers didn't necessarily have to deal with, at least not completely, at least not in the same capacity as Sam does. Especially his perspective is different because Sam is black, and also Captain America, Steve Rogers, was white. So their perspective is different, but they all kind of still have the same foundations in terms of what they believe in their morals. And the franchise has always been about more than just one man. It's about the ideals that that man represents. Steve Rogers' journey from a scrawny Brooklyn kid to symbolize the hope that reflects the nature of the American dream, what it was supposed to be. In the Brave New World, Sam takes up the mantle, embodying a new era of Captain America that reflects the diversity and complexity of modern America. So we know this is an actual fact. Check the federal websites if they're still available. But the country is no longer predominantly just like, you know, white, essentially. The country is essentially split in half. It's 50-50, 50% white, 50% minority, which means this country is now completely diverse. Now, the numbers are not 100% accurate because a lot of people don't do the census, and, you know, it's not going to be 100%. When in reality, this country is extremely diverse. The US is very diverse, and Sam is supposed to represent that, which is why we're seeing more characters of color in these roles, taking up these mantles, because it is no longer something that is rare anymore. We're everywhere. Not just me, but people of color in general. So when you're watching this film, remember, these films are more than just like a superhero movie. They are profound explorations of freedom, morality, and the responsibilities of leadership. So we know this from Steve Rogers, his unwavering commitment to justice, and Sam Wilson's empathetic and inclusive approach. So the franchises continue to challenge and reflect on the values that define us as individuals and as society. Now, I don't know the intentions of Disney, but also these are kind of social experiments. You know, people tend to wish and wash depending on who they can relate to when it comes to the main characters. Now, even though Sam Wilson is in the comics and he does become Captain America in the comics, in reality, there's a lot of people who still struggle to see him as Captain America. Now, it can be due to the fact that he doesn't have the super soldier serum. It could be due to the fact that he doesn't have powers. Whatever the reasoning may be, he himself has his own set of struggles that makes him different from Steve Rogers. And the scene from Civil War where Zemo critiques humanity's willingness to surrender freedoms remains a powerful reminder as well of the importance of vigilance in preserving democracy, and a message that resonates even strongly with the Brave New World as it tackles contemporary issues of power, trust, and accountability, especially when it comes to the governments that are supposed to govern their people. Now, to wrap up this video, I want to say something that is very much still related to all of the movies, but something for you to think about. Now, even though this channel is all about, black, characters, black content, this is something that also is very prevalent, or I would say it's more of an undertone, but it's something that if you pick up the details, you'll kind of understand what I'm going to say. Now, we know in this world, racism does exist. It still continues to exist. It has existed. But if I were to let you know my personal beliefs, I think racism is often used as a tool to divert attention and place blame on other groups of people rather than addressing the systemic issues caused by wealth inequalities and the actions of the wealthy. Here's a simple explanation, right? By promoting racial divides, let's say black people are angry, they're dangerous, Mexicans are taking jobs, whatever the case may be, often the wealthy elite can keep people focused on conflicts between racial and ethnic groups. This distracts from the fact that wealth and power are concentrated in the hands of very few people in the world. Now, if there's only a few people in charge, it benefits them to keep us separated. It allows society to blame minority groups for economic or social problems, unemployment, crime, lack of resources, instead of examining how policies and systems created by the wealthy, like tax loopholes and corporate greed or underfunded public services that we pay tax monies into, are the root cause. They do this because it's easy to maintain control. When people are divided by race, they're less likely to unite across racial lines, challenge the wealthy. It's a tactic they've been using since slavery. Poor whites were often put in charge of black people. They didn't get any money for it, but because they were given a position higher than someone else, it kept them complacent. But in reality, the enemy has always been the same. The rich and the wealthy continue to perpetuate these stereotypes or portray certain groups as lazy or criminals or undeserving or unintelligent, reinforcing the idea that their struggles are their own fault. This ignores barriers of unequal access to education, housing, and jobs, which are often shaped by policies that favor the wealthy, and that is something we are seeing today. Peace out.